Okay, so here goes the fourth fast track IMED-2415 video. Here I'm going to start working on assignment 3. Hopefully I will have it done by the end of this video. Hopefully it will be less than 15 minutes. I realize I may be going a little bit fast. I'll try to slow down at certain points where I know that maybe you can pause and go back a little bit to check your work as you go along. I'm just going to do it at a regular pace as I might be doing this in the classroom. Obviously we don't have the opportunity to do the lab, but you can always email me any questions that you may have or participate in virtual labs to ask your questions. So we're going to be adding CSS to an HTML page. What that means is that we already have an HTML page that we're going to download. Everything is actually in the assignments3.zip file. I'm going to right click and save this link. I'm going to put it in not my OneDrive, but rather my Google Drive, and I'm going into my El Centro folder, etc. You should be going into your Web 2 folder and going into your assignment 3 folder once you hit that folder. Mine is somewhere in here. It's in the fall. It's in this class, in the Dreamweaver class, and there's my Web 2. So hopefully you got to your Web 2 on your desktop pretty quick, and then you found your assignment 3. Double click and just save your zip in there. We're going to delete this in a little bit, but in the meantime we're just going to go to that location. I'm using Chrome, so I can click on the little drill and tell it to show me the file in the folder. That's what that folder looks like. It's assignment 3. If you have Firefox, there should have been a different way for you to get it. Just find your zip file, and once you get to it, right click, and in Windows you would tell it to extract all. If you're in a Macintosh machine, you would find your zip file, double click it, and it would just unarchive it. Tell it to extract, and it actually creates a new folder inside of that assignment 3 folder. That's also called assignment 3. This gets a little confusing, a little hairy, so what I'll do is I'll move this folder out of the way so that I can see the actual assignment 3 folder, which is this one. It's the one that ends after Web 2 assignment 3. That's where the zip currently lives. I'm going to double click on the new assignment 3 that was just taken out, and there are 3 items. There's an images folder, an index.html, and a styles.css. If you can actually see both windows, what you can do is select them, all the 3 files, and just click, hold the mouse, and drag them over. And then that way you'll have all the files in the same folder. I'm going to close the assignment 3 folder that was just created, and I'm also going to delete the zip file that I downloaded. I just right click on it and tell it to delete, and the assignment 3 folder that was created inside the assignment 3 folder I can also delete. So now it's all gone. Okay, so now with these 3 files, and if that was confusing, please try again. This is a zip file, and hopefully by now, if you're taking this course, you're familiar with zip files and you know how to manipulate the contents. All I need you to do is to move the files from the zip file into the assignment 3 folder, so that when you close it and you get out and go back to Dreamweaver, you can reload the contents, refresh the contents of the folder, and open up assignment 3 and see that there's an index file, there's a styles.css, and there's a folder with images in it. These images will be used in the page. Okay, so what we do with this particular assignment, we're going to open up the recipe.txt. You can also download the RTF and use that one instead. I'd much rather just click on recipe.txt, and I see all the changes that I have to make. Seems like a lot, but don't worry, there's not really that much. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's a little bit more than a dozen. Let's say about 15 changes that we're going to make. Each one of those changes having different options. So since I am looking at this in the browser, I'm going to press Ctrl A to select all the text, and then right click and copy. If you're in a Mac, Command A would also allow you to select all. Command C would allow you to copy. You could also click from the very top and just drag all the way to the bottom and do the same thing. Right click and copy. Once you copy it, you can close the page. I recommend that you have a text editor open. I have opened my Notepad++ and I'm going to paste the contents of the file that I just copied. So let's see if I can read it here, and that's fine. I'm going to minimize my assignment from Blackboard. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller and maybe a little bit wider so that I don't have that much space wasted. And I will open up the index page inside of the assignment 3 folder. So this is a fairly plain Jane page. It says assignment 3 on top. So I can see a little bit better on my screen, I'm going to click the design button, and that way I can see what's going on. I have a header that says assignment 3. It's followed by a navigation element, followed by some body with different levels of headings, and then there's going to be a footer at the bottom. All the HTML coding has already been done for you. That's the code that already exists on the page. This is as if it had been just created using a text editor or even Dreamweaver, but it doesn't have any CSS just yet. It is attached, however, to the styles.css page, which is currently blank, and that's our job. We're going to translate all of these changes into actual changes in the HTML code, or rather the CSS page that will, the CSS style sheet that will actually modify the HTML code. I'm going to switch to design, and I will probably stay on design for the rest of the assignment unless I can't find what I need on my CSS on the right side. And what I mean by that is I'm going to be using the Css Designer. If you had changed for whatever reason from beginner to something else, I recommend that you choose beginner on the top button. And if you need to, because everything else just comes out like that, click on beginner again and tell it to reset beginner, and this is what it would look like as if you had just purchased this program. I'm going to minimize, or rather even get rid of the DOM window by finding the contextual menu and finding close tab group. I know you probably can't see it there. You could also double click on DOM, it will be minimized. I'm going to hit the side and tell it to close it, and I opened up 2 Adobe help pages while doing that. Try one last time. I'm going to close the tab group, and now it's gone. I'm interested in seeing the CSS Designer. The CSS Designer is what's going to bring all the magic come into the HTML document that we're working with. So our first job is to change the styles for the body tag. As I go along, I'll be deleting the text so that I don't repeat what I'm doing. I will click on styles.css to make sure it's active and then know that any changes that I make will be reflected on that file. And the first thing we're going to change is to set the font in the body tag to Baskerville. Well, currently my styles don't show me any selectors. I will need to see the properties. I won't be working with media anytime soon, so I'm going to minimize this window by dragging media up. All I get to do, or get to see actually, is the styles.css on top. I'm going to minimize the space for media. Selectors I will need because that's what we're actually adding. These are selector modifications that are on this file, and we get to start with the body tag, as I said. So no selectors yet, so let's add the body tag. The body tag is actually an HTML element as opposed to just a regular CSS. If I go to code, you'll know then that in all the code that we do, everything that's inside any importance in the page is in the body. We have the head, we have the body, we have several lists, etc. These are all HTML HTML properties rather. So to add a selector that reflects what happens to the body, I'll go back to design. I'm going to add that selector by clicking on plus, and the first thing that pops up is the body. If you don't see body here, if you see anything else, if maybe you see a UL or an LI, that might be because you have something selecting on this side. You could easily just highlight whatever it is that appeared and delete it with the backspace and just type in body. and you'll see that Dreamweaver will try to help you out. Do you mean T-body or body? We want body. And then I'll press enter to accept. The selector will turn blue. Then in the properties, I don't see enough properties as I'd like to, and that's because it's showing me a set of properties. So I'll click on the check mark to unmark that, and now I see all the properties that we need. The body properties are the following. We're going to set the font to Baskerville. If you're still using CS6, and I hope you're not, because there's a big difference between CS6 and the rest of the CC software suite, then you might go back to some of the really old videos that I have on YouTube. If you need help with CS6, let me know, because I can guide you to where you can find help for this assignment. So the font is going to be set in the properties under type. Properties are divided into layout, which will give us properties for our margins and our padding, etc. There's properties for text. That's the big T here. We have properties for borders. We have properties for backgrounds, and I didn't mean to minimize that, but there it went. Bring this back up. And then we have other properties, which used to be more, but now on CC, more is less, and that doesn't really make much sense. But I'll go back to just the regular layout, and actually specifically I'll go back to text. I'm clicking on T. All of these, they're not separate windows. There's actually one long window with everything that you want to know about CSS. If you scroll down the first time, you might think that's a whole bunch of things, but really it's just a couple of dozen things that you can change. I'm going to click back on T just to make sure that I'm on text. Set the font to Baskerville. So the font family is currently on the default font, which is probably a Times or something. It's whatever the user's browser is set to, and that's usually Times or Arial. I'm going to click on default font, and I get a selection from it starts with Baskerville and it goes all the way to other things that maybe you're familiar with. Some of these, maybe you're familiar with Cambria from Word, Georgia also from Word, Gill Sans, Helvetica, etc. These are all font families that are common in the web environment. We want to use Baskerville. That's the first one, and the font family has changed from default to Baskerville, and all the fonts on your body are now Baskerville. You will not see this reflected anywhere else except in the properties. That's where we are talking about the body, and we're talking about the text that goes with the properties for the body, and that is the Baskerville. We're going to set the text color to black. So I'm going to delete those first two lines. The text color is also under text. Color is right there. It's currently undefined. If you are a user of hexadecimal numbers because you're really into web design, you could just type in hashtag 000,000, and that would give you black. You could have also clicked on, well, let me delete that first. You could have clicked on the little palette. That's this set color with the red through it. The red line going through it means that it's got no values currently. I could have clicked on that and then see a color palette, very much like you do in Photoshop, and then just select the color. You can't see it, but there is a hashtag 00000 6 zeros at the bottom. I'll press enter to accept, and now our font for the body font family is 0, or rather the color for font family is 0. I'll delete that line since that's done. We're going to set the line height to 140%. The line height is the space in between lines in the body. So we'll click on text again just to make sure we're there, and the line height is right there. All we gotta do is click on normal. This is a percentage, so we can say percent and type in 140. If you are a hardcore web designer, you might not want to use percentage. You might want to click on percent and instead use EM. And EM is actually the size that we want. This is going not at one time the size, but 140 times. We actually would want 1.4 EM. And then the line height is represented a little bit better. Actually, it's the same as 140%. It's just that when it comes to using the best practices for HTML design, EM is what you want to go with. 1.4 is equal to 140%. So I'll delete that. If you use 140% here, I mean, that's fine, don't worry about it, just keep on using what's in the recipe. We're going to set the margin for body at 30 pixels. The margin is in the layout, the very first of the icons, and our margin is easy to find. It's right here that you can see that this square shows us what the element would look like and all the margin around it. If you just see one value for margin, that means that that's what we want all around. And we could either type in 30 pixels on each one of these numbers. We could link the margin clip in the end, in the center rather, and then that would change it for all sides. Or we could just set the shorthand here and say 30px, and what that means is just put 30 pixels everywhere. This is something new in Dreamweaver. One of my summer students found out about it and she told me, and I'd like to share it with all my classes. We're going to set the background image to page background or page bg.gif. It should not repeat, it should stay fixed, and the background color should be this color. So first of all, I'm going to highlight this color and I'm going to copy it so that I have it on my clipboard. And then see, what was I talking about? The background image. The background is the second to the last. I did that again, and I apologize in advance. I'm going to do this several times. I'm going to bring it back, and same thing with my media. I wish that there were a way to lock this, and maybe there is. I'm just not familiar with it. So let's see. I was doing the styles.css in the body and the background. So the background color is what I just copied, and I know that's the last thing here, but since I'm going to copy and paste anyway, I just get it out of the way. I'm going to click on undefined, and I'm going to press Ctrl V to paste. If you're in a Mac, hopefully you know that Command C copies, Command V paste. And now that's the color that this needs to be. By the way, and I didn't mention this earlier, in your exercise there is a picture of what the final site's supposed to look like. It's just a picture, or rather this is somewhere else. This is in another site. This is what we're going to end up with. So you can start to compare your colors as they're appearing in your Dreamweaver page with what it might actually end up looking like. So we have that color set, the background color. We're gonna get a background image, and it's gonna be page bg.gif. We're still in the body and still in the background. We're going to find the background image right here. It's asking me for a URL. Well, the URL is going to be basically the path that we're linking to. That's where the picture is, the ones that we downloaded and put in that images folder. This is something that's wrong with Dreamweaver. I clicked on URL and then I clicked on the folder and nothing happens. You have to do it again. Click on URL and then click on folder, and then it tells you, oh, you're looking for a file. Well, yes, I'm in assignment 3 in my images, and we're looking for a file called pagebg.gif. That's this one right there, and you can tell what it looks like. It's a big background. It's got some people silhouettes and 3 stars. I'll click OK, and then the background appears in my document, and I can slide down and you can tell it's a big document. It starts to repeat at some point, and that's why the instructions say that it should stay fixed and it should not repeat. So let's find where we can change that. Background repeat is currently at default. Just because it doesn't have any values, it doesn't mean that it's set at 0. It just means it has no information. The background repeat, you can say to repeat at will. I mean, it's going to just use it all over the place. It can repeat in the x-axis. That means that it's going to have one here, another one on the side, etc., horizontally. Then there's a vertical repeat, that's repeat y, and then there's no repeat, which is what we want. That means we just want to see this once. If I do the scrolling again, then you'll see that it only shows up once and it stays on top. It's moving along with the rest of the window, and we don't want it to scroll. We want the background to stay fixed, and that's what that means, to stay fixed. So let's see where we can find that. The background attachment is currently on default, which is nothing, and we're going to change it not to scroll but rather to fixed. And let's see what happens when we scroll this down. Well, currently nothing, and that's something that maybe can be fixed if we go to the code and then come back to design. And maybe not. Well, at any rate, the background is fixed, and until I set this in stone and upload it, I'll go back and double check it. I know right now that the background is attached and it's fixed, and it's not repeating. So let me publish it and see what happens when I visit the page. Outputting, saying yes and yes to all. I'll move the recipe out of the way. And I expect that this has already uploaded. I'm going to open up my Internet Explorer and visit my page. I am no longer in my office. I am now actually at home in a laptop. I'm awaiting the time for the virtual lab to start. I'll say IMED-2415, etc. That's my page. I'm going to reload it just to be sure. Click on assignment 2. Nothing's there, and that's because, of course, I have not linked anything. So before I do anything, get too much deeper into this, I'm going to go into my Files tab, find my main root index. That's the one that's at the very bottom. Usually if you find your root folder and you follow the line, that's the index page that you want. And assignment 3, I'm going to highlight, and on the link I'm going to click on the little folder and then go navigate to assignment 3 and open up, or just click OK with index selected. That way this will link to assignment 3 and the index. I can now publish this, put yes to all, yes, and wait for it to go and close. Now I'll go back to Internet Explorer and I'll reload this page. I now have a link to assignment 3. I click on that, and as I scroll down you'll see that the picture actually stays fixed. So it's just something that the Dreamweaver program is not able to do. It's a little bit lagging on updating, as you can tell. So speaking of lagging, let me move along. We have already completed everything for the body, so I'm going to delete that much. Next we're going to go to the page header ID h1 tag. And what does that mean exactly? There's a page header ID somewhere, and if I look at the code again, you'll see that it's right there. There's a page header ID. It's as the body starts, and that's where assignment 3 in heading 1 is housed. So I'm clicking back on the design so that if I click on assignment 3, that's what we just saw in the code, you'll see at the bottom in the tag selector that is telling us, oh, you're inside the body. And then inside the body there's a division that's called page header. It's got an ID of page header, and then there's an h1 tag. So I'm clicking on the h1 tag, and that has all of assignment 3 text selected. And I can then flip back to my Css Designer. I'm still in styles.css, but I only have a body selector. We don't have an h1 tag selector yet. So with this tag in blue, because I clicked and select the assignment 3, I click on plus to add a selector. Dreamweaver will figure out, oh well, since you are so interested in h1 and you have assignment 3 all lit up, that's probably what you want to change, and that's exactly what it gives us. It gives us the h1 inside of page header. I'll press enter to accept that change, or rather accept the adding of that selector. And we're going to set the font size to 350%. So I'll go back into text, and that's going to give me the font properties. And as I said, you can use 350%, but I'm going to instead use 3.5M. So I'll go to font size, and I'll say in M 3.5. So it's 3.5 times the size of the average h1 tag. I'll delete that. I'm going to copy this color. Just right click and copy. In my color, and rather in my text properties, I'll define the undefined text, and I'll press Ctrl V to paste. You could also type in if you want. I'd just rather copy and paste. I'm going to delete that since I changed it. We're going to set the padding to 40 pixels. And the padding is in the layout. That's the first thing in the properties. And we have margin for starters, and then the second box is padding. And we set 40 pixels. And set shorthand, I'm just going to type in 40px. And now the 40 pixels are in the padding inside of assignment 3 box. The left margin will be changed to 120%. So I'll go up a little bit and change. I know actually I'm not dealing with the margin, I'm dealing with the padding. This has already changed to 40%. I'm going to hover on top of the link because everything is linked since we use the shorthand. But now it's going to be unlinked. That means that each one of these numbers is going to be set individually, and the one on the left is going to be 120 pixels. So it's 120px. And that you can see here is 120 pixels as opposed to the 40 on top and bottom. I'm going to highlight that text to get rid of it. I'm going to set the background image to header image 1.gif. The background is the second from the right. I'll click on that. Background image, once again, URL, click, hit the folder, and then click on URL again and click the folder again. One of these days they'll fix that. We want header image 1. That's the same sort of cutouts, silhouettes, but in color. It's also transparent, so I'll double click to accept that, and you'll see that we have that image all over the place. That's because it's repeating. It doesn't have much space to repeat. You can see the heads of the bodies trying to reappear, but we won't be using them. We're going to position all this at the top left, and that may be a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with this. So I'm still in the background. I have the background image, and I'm going to change the options so that if it's going to not repeat, that's going to be the last option, no repeat. Now I only see one of them. And then we're going to position it at the top left. The background position currently is on default, which is at 0% and 0%. I'm going to click on the percent. And since it's going to be top left, on the first one I'm going to change it to left. On the second one I'm going to click on percent, and I'm going to change it to top. And now that's going to be top left. And we're done with that part. Next we're going to the container ID. I'm going to go back to my code and take a look at what we got. Container is what follows. That's what's going to contain the navigation and the content. If we were designing this page from scratch, we probably wouldn't use a container, we would use something else. But since we just want to get familiar with the tools at hand, we'll just keep on going with the same IDs that come with the package. Clicking back on design, and since I did touch the container in the code, it's now selected. You can see that thick blue line. It also shows me in the tag selector that div container is selected. So we want to make sure that that stays selected because that's what we want to change. Before we change it, we need to add that selector. In selectors, I'm going to click on plus, and it's now created the hashtag container. That's the ID container selector. Pressing enter to accept, we're going to set the bottom margin to 30 pixels. So not many changes on container. I'll go to layout to find the margin, and then in the bottom we're going to change that from 0 to 30 pixels. And we can't see it, but at the bottom there's just this little space that now appears. You can see that sort of looks like it's grayed out with the diagonal lines. I can delete what we just did, and this is actually going pretty fast. I've been talking for about half an hour, and I think that I'm just gonna go in for the long run here. Like I said, this looks like a lot, but not really. I think we're halfway through. For the navigation ID, which is going to be these little numbers here, page 1, etc. If I click on one of those, you'll see that I see body, division container, division navigation, and then the unordered list and list and link that follows. I'm going to click on navigation ID. That's it. You'll see the selection on that whole tag, and I will go back to my styles.css and add that selector. Click on plus, and now I have container and navigation. So the navigation, we're going to set the float to left. The float we're going to be able to change with the layout. That's going to be below the margin, the padding, and the positioning. Float is right here. You have left, you have right, or no float. We want to float it to the left. And we're going to change the width to 150%. The width in the layout and in the whole box in general, it's at the very top. Width is currently not set. We're going to change that to 150 pixels. I click on auto, or at least the what seems to be auto, and change it to pixels 150. And there's the little box that appears. Eventually this is going to look like what? It's gonna look like this. Well, I thought I opened it. It's right there. No, it's not there. Oh, I did open it. It's just that I have that on top. Okay, so this is the box. We're opening up this space. Eventually this is going to be its own column, and everything else is going to be on its own as well. But for now, we just open up a little bit of space. Kind of delete the code for navigation there. We're now going to have the ID for the navigation ID, change the UL tag. The unordered list, this is an unordered list. It goes from page 1 to page 5, and it's got bullets points, and that's all that an unordered list is. It's just a bullet point. If it were an ordered list, it would be numbered from 1 to 5. So with that selected somewhere, I see that I have body, division container, division navigation, and then there's the UL that we want to change. So I click on UL. The unordered list is now highlighted and selected, which means that I can go to the styles.css and then tell it to add that selector, and that's what it does. It adds the container, which has the navigation, and then it has the UL attached to it. We want to set the padding to 0%. So in the UL, I'm going to go and click on layout and find the padding. Padding is right here. I'm going to set the shorthand and just put in 0. I'm not worried about px because 0 is absolute 0, and it means the same in any measurement. I'm going to delete that since we did that. We're still working on UL. I'm going to set the margin to 0 as well. Margin is right there. I'm going to set the shorthand to 0. As you can see, now it's flushed to the left. I'm going to change the list style type to none. The lists are going to be toward the bottom, so I just scrolled it down all the way, and I'm going to start to scroll up until I see something that says list. And maybe I'm thinking of another version of Dreamweaver, but until very recently the list was at the bottom. Well, it's not the absolute bottom. It looks like it's at the bottom of the middle, if that makes any sense. So there's the list style type, currently undefined. I click there and to change it from undefined to none, because once again, undefined doesn't mean that it doesn't have anything. Now it has nothing since we changed it to none. The style type is none. Highlight that, delete it. The margin has already been changed to 0, and we're going to set the color to this number. I'm going to copy and UL blah blah blah, etc. When you see color, more likely than not, that means the text. So color is currently undefined. I'm going to select undefined. I'm going to Control V to paste, and then the color of the list changes. You can't really tell because it's still a link, and the link has its own properties. We're going to be changing that soon. Delete all that. And now we're going to go into the navigation ID LI tag. So the LI tag, the list tag, that's every single item that's inside the unordered list. So if I click on page 1, I'll see that I have navigation UL, and then there's LI, A being the link. I click on LI. Once that's selected, I'm going to click on plus in selectors, and now I have a navigation UL LI. And although you'd think that it would be container navigation UL LI, and it probably should, this is the way that it's going to work. I mean, and you can add the container at the front, but if it keeps on working, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But like I said, if you go in there and click and double click, well, not necessarily double click, but just sort of click until you can change the name, which was double click. How about that? Do I want to type in hashtag container? I guess I could. It shouldn't affect anything. So there it is. If you didn't type in container for ULLI, don't worry about it, because like I said, navigation ULLI should work just fine. going to set the margin on this tag to 10 pixels, and that's in the layout. Margin, we're going to set the shorthand to 10 pixels, 10 px. We're going to set the border width to 1 pixel. Borders are the third from the left. Border currently, this is a little bit tricky. It didn't used to be this tricky before, but CC 2014 brought some unwelcome changes. In my opinion, this is one of them. Border width will be 1. So here's the width, and it currently says it's medium, but no, we want it in pixels, and we want it at 1 pixel. Here's what I don't like, is that doesn't mean anything, just putting in the 1 pixel. That means that if it did have a border, it would be 1 pixel. Currently it's got no style and it's got no color. So that's something we got to change. We're going to change the style to solid right there, and we're going to change the color to this color. Otherwise we couldn't see it, so I copied this number, this hexadecimal, copy, and undefined I'm going to paste with Control V. And then we're going to set the background color of the IDLI tag. Each one of these, you see it's forming a little box. We're going to put in a little background for that box. So I'm going to copy that with Control C and find my background properties and undefined and paste that color. And now it's beginning to look like a real button. I'm done with these. I'm going to delete them. Will I regret having deleted all these things if I need to go back? Maybe for a little bit, but remember that these are all saved on the website in your assignment. For the navigation ID A tag, so the A tag is the link. That's the last thing in the button. If I click on, I'm not selecting anything, I'm just clicking on page 1. At the very end there's the A, so that's the container div navigation ULLI A. I'm going to add that selector. I'm going to click on plus, and once again this one just says ULLI A. It didn't even put in either hashtag container or hashtag navigation. I'm lazy, or at least I think I like to work smart. I'm going to highlight. I double clicked on the name from the previous one. Highlight container navigation, press Control C to copy, and then double click on the bottom one, go to the left and press Control V to paste and put in a space, and now it says container navigation ULLI A. Would it hurt if it only said ULLI A? Probably not. Lots of students just do that and turn it in and it looks fine. I'm just trying to be a little bit more consistent. By the way, as we're typing in all this information in Selector, your styles.css, you'll see it's got this little asterisk on top. That means that there's been some changes made that just haven't been saved. So I'll click on it to select it and click on the code to see it. And this is what's been happening behind the scenes. So your CSS is being written for you. And one big advantage of using Dreamweaver. So I'll go back to source code and I'll go back to design, and just because, like I said, I've been talking for almost 40 minutes now, I'm going to save this file. So I'll click on File and Save. Okay, so we have defined in the selectors the container navigation ULLI A tag. We're going to set the color of the tag. Once again, the color means the text, to white. That's 6 Fs. I'll copy that, and my ULLIA in my text, I'll change the color to white. Control V. I could have also typed in those letters. The background color is going to be this color. I'll copy, go to the background, and in undefined just paste what I copied. The padding for the ID tag, once again, it's going to be in layout. Padding is going to be 3 pixels. I'll put it in shorthand, 3px. And the right padding will now be 60. Right padding, I'm going to unlock it so that I can go to the right side and type in 60px. And I'm going to set the decoration to none. The text decoration is right here. I clicked on text first, and I'm going to click on the none. That's the first icon, little icon there. So now it's got no decoration. All that means is that it's not going to be underlined as links usually are. Some people ask me, well, why is it that I'm clicking and nothing happens? I'm not going to these pages. Dreamweaver is used specifically for design. If you wanted to navigate, you could change from design into live. But as you're working, this might be taking you to other pages, and I just try to avoid that. So I'll go back from live back to design and just keep it at this, and then whenever I want to see what it's looking like, I'll just put it onto the server. I'll say yes and yes to all, and then I can go and visit my Internet Explorer page, reload, and it's coming along nicely. All the changes that we made so far are represented. Going back to Dreamweaver, and we're done with the A tag. Okay, for the navigation ID hover pseudo class, if you're watching this, then you also might be expecting, even as we speak, even as I speak, the virtual lab on Tuesday, November, what's today? The 11th? No, the 10th. And I'm not ready. It's 5:55 right now, so if I'm late, I'll probably say, hey, I was recording a video. This is what I'm talking about. For the navigation ID, there's a hover pseudo class, and pseudo classes are also tricky in Dreamweaver. Well, lots of tricky stuff in Dreamweaver, but not that much, because regularly you could just go into the styles.css and do a hover pseudo class, and all that means is that you're going to find the A and basically type in the same thing and then add a hover to it. But we can do that if we find the original one, the original A. That's this one, container navigation ULLIA. I'm going to right click on that and tell it to duplicate. It just basically makes a copy. It's named the same thing, which is kind of dumb, but after that same name, if you press enter, then you're going to have two tags with the same name. So don't do that. Don't press enter. If you press enter, then double click to change this one. Press at the end of the A colon, and then you'll get contextual menu. What do you want to do? Well, our pseudo class is going to be hover. So I'll find hover, it's right there, and press enter to accept. My pseudo class is created, and all we need to do is, whenever we hover, we want it to change to this number. So I'll copy that, Control C, go back to my colors and change it from white to that color. We won't see it here until it's actually published. So I'll delete that. Almost done. For the content ID, remember the content, that's here. If I click somewhere in the middle of the content, then I'll get container, etc. Let me click where it says here's a head. There's the content right there. So I'll click on content, and then I'll go back to styles.css and add this selector. There's my container content ID. I'll press enter to accept. I'm going to set the background image to transPG. It's a transparent background. I'm going to click on the background and look for my background image URL, folder URL again, and then the folder one more time. Hopefully that works. If it doesn't, I'll do it again. There it is. And we want the transPG. TransPG is right there. This is basically a picture of gray. That's the best that I can describe it as. It's got transparent holes through it, so it's white, and then it's got holes so you can see through it like a screen. So there that is. Still in content ID, we're going to change the border to 1 pixel solid and make it this gray color. That's the 6 C's border right here. It's in the middle. There's my border. We know that we want the width to be 1 pixel, so I'll select pixels and type in 1. The style should be solid, and the color should be 6 C's. There's the color right there. Should those C's be capitalized? It doesn't matter. It's a hexadecimal number, so You don't really need to be case sensitive. You'll set the left margin to 180, so I'll go back to my layout and there's my margin. Left margin will be 180. I'll just type in 180 px, and we're going to set the padding to 10 pixels all around. So in my shorthand I'll just type in 10 pixels, and that does it for the content ID. Footer ID, I'm just going by the names of the tags. Footer is going to be at the bottom. It's going to be here somewhere, so I click, there's my footer. I click on footer to select it in the tag selector. I'll add the selector, and I have a hashtag footer ID appear. I'm going to set the clear to both. The clear is going to be underneath the margin and the padding and all that in the layout. So I'll scroll down. There's a float that we changed earlier on something else, but here's the clear. We can clear left, we can clear right, and then we can clear both. And that's what we want to do, clear both. And next we're going to set the text align to center. So back to text, and here's our text align right there. It looks like Word, so I'll center it, and our text then becomes centered. I'll get rid of this part of the recipe. The footer ID li tag, you can see that this is a list, unordered list. I'm going to click anywhere in one of the list items. There's the li. I'll click on that, and I'll be able to add the property in the properties. No, I don't care for the properties. So we have enough properties. I'm going to click on the plus in selectors to add the selector. So there's the footer ul li, and we're going to change the display to inline. Display is actually where? Somewhere on top. They changed this recently, so I'm going to go to layout. That's the very top, and then there's display right there. Display, although it says inline, it doesn't. It's grayed out, so it doesn't mean anything. I'll click on inline, and that'll make it go horizontally. It also gets rid of the bullet points. Let's set the padding to 10 pixels to give us a little space in between the words. See, padding is going to be in layout, and it's beneath the margin. The padding in the shorthand, I'm going to say 10 pixels, 10 px. So delete that. And for the h1 tag, this is the h1 tag all over. Just like we did the body at the beginning, we're going to add the h1 for everything. So I'll click on styles.css, and then I'm going to just click on what? Do I click on filter CSS rules? Maybe if I click on the, if I start to type in h1, does something happen? Not really. I'm going to just add a selector, and it tells me footer ul li because that's the last thing I did. I'm going to backspace to delete that and type in h1, and h1 appears. I'll select it and press enter, and I'm going to change the h1, and that's going to be for every h1. We have one h1 currently. It's this top one that says assignment 3. I'm going to change the color to be this color. I'll copy that, Control C, in the text for the h1, change the color to that, and now it's set for that color, which is the same color as it was before. Let's see some changes in the other ones. Oh no, I'm sorry, that was not h1. This is the h1 that's inside of the assignment. This is the h1 outside everywhere else, which is this one right here. Okay, I've only done this 10 times. Not today, maybe last semester. The h2 tag, I know this is a heading of level 2, so I don't have to click anywhere because I'm not really dependent on the assignment. I just want to change the tag. I'm going to go to the selectors, add a new selector, make sure that I type in h2 because that's what I want to change, press enter, and we're going to change the border left. That's in the layout. There's a border, no, that's in the border. Actually, we're going to underline this. I'm going to change the border left to 20 pixels solid at this color. First I'm going to copy that color, and in border we have a width of 20 pixels. It's going to be a thick line, and we want the style to be solid. and we want it to be, we said border left, so right now I'm on border and I want to make sure that it's border left. Border right, I really don't want this, I'm going to delete that. I apologize if you started to do this already, because I should have just gone straight to the left instead of just adding them to all. You can see here it's only on the left side that we need that for now. The color is that one that I copied, I'll paste it. And then there's a border bottom, which is also here. There's the bottom. The width is going to be 20 pixels. The style is solid. And the color is just pasted. And there, that appears. Pretty gnarly. Actually, it's not supposed to be that thick. It's supposed to be 5 pixels. I wish you were here to correct me. Anybody? Set the padding left to 5 pixels. The padding is going to be in the layout. I'll change to 5 on the left, 5px. That put a little bit of space there. And that's the h2 tag. We're going to change the h3 tag next. First by adding the selector h3. And set the background to header star 1. So in h3, I'm going to find the background image URL, and then URL again until we see that appear. We're already there. It's the header star 1, that one right there. Double click. That's going to be the h3, and you see that it just appeared everywhere where the h3 is in the background, and that's where we're going to change the repeat to none. Should not repeat. And in background, there's the background repeat to no repeat. So now we only see 1 star right there. And we're going to set the padding left to 20. That's going to shift the h3 so that we can actually see the star. In my layout, under padding left, I'll type in 20 pixels. First year that I taught this class, my live class in the morning, it took us 2 weeks to go through this, and I really don't understand why. The block quote tag, which doesn't quite exist yet, just like H1, H2, H3 did not. Actually, they're there, we just haven't messed with them. I'm going to click on Selector Plus, and I'm going to start to type in block quote, B-L-O-C-K, and there's block quote right there. I'll click to select, press enter. And all we're going to change is the background color to be this color. Copy and paste. Got 2 to go. We're still under an hour. For the UL tag, that's the UL tag all around, and we've already have some ULs, and maybe they'll get affected, maybe not so much. I moved something else. This should go up and up. Properties I should be able to see, but not that much. I want to see my selectors as well. I'll add a new selector, and that's going to be the UL tag. Press enter to accept. The list style type should be square. List style type, I think we saw that earlier. It's not toward all the way to the bottom. I think I said it was the bottom of the middle. List style type. List style type undefined. We'll go from that to square. Right there. And that does it for that. I think you'll see the square where somewhere. There's our block quote with its new background. At any rate. For the A tag, so that's all the links, including maybe even the ones that we already used. Going to add that property, not the property. We have enough properties. We need a new selector. That's going to be the A tag, so I'll delete that and type A. Press enter again. I'm going to set the color to this color, and let's see, we have links all over the place. You can see unvisited links. I'll go to the top, or actually to text. In text, change the color by pasting what I just copied. You'll see the unvisited link is now changed. And we're going to change the font weight to bold. Font weight is family style. Font style should be no. font weight should be bold. Like I said, I wish you were here to correct me. I'll change that, and here we come to the very last thing. I don't remember how many lines we had to begin with, but we're going to create one last hover pseudo class. So that's going to be for the A that we just created. I'm going to slide down to the last selector. There's the A. I'll right click and say duplicate to make a copy. There's the A. I'll click to the right of it, type in a colon, and we want to select hover and press enter to accept. Not too many times. The pseudo class basically says whenever we hover on top of links they should change to this number, so I'll copy that. And our ace already had colors, but for the hover we're going to change the color from that red to something else. It's going to be some sort of yellow. We can't see it yet. At this point I can forget about the list. I'm going to hide my notepad. I'm going to see that my code looks okay, and this has come a long way in the last hour or so that we've been making these changes. I'm going to click on file management and tell it to put the file, say yes to all and yes, wait for a little bit, not too long, and now I'm going to knock on wood and visit my page on Internet Explorer. I'd rather use anything else but Internet Explorer. It's just that it comes in handy. Someday I'll share the story. I'll reload. My assignment 3 looks good on top. It's got the background image. I have a navigation bar on the left. The text is separated. You can tell this nice space on the side. I have a footer. I have unvisited links that when you click or rather hover on top they change color. My star looks fine on level 3. H2 looks good. It's underlined. H1 is a different color. And I could make this wider, shorter, etc., and I could still see the whole page. So like I said, I went through this fairly fast. There's another collection of videos where I've already talked about this. I was using a previous version of CC, but it should bring to light some of the changes that have happened in Dreamweaver in the last year or so. If you were to see the CS6, this would be completely different. Once again, if you're using Adobe Dreamweaver CS6, please let me know and I'll guide you to the right place. So I'll see you on the next video where I'll talk about the next thing, whatever that may be. Assignment 4, I'm guessing. I'm sending an email to remind everybody that there is a virtual lab that should have started 11 minutes ago.